Something about that announcement carried a quiet weight the moment it landed. While Eamonn Holmes was following doctor's orders and stepping away from the breakfast desk for a few days, his GB News colleagues were learning that their still young program had forced its way onto the TIC Awards shortlist. 5 months in, standing shoulder to shoulder with the long-established giants of morning television, you could almost feel the studio's usual early morning energy shift into something warmer, more reflective. Isabel Webster shared the news herself, and the way she framed it felt telling. It wasn't just professional pride. It was the sound of a team that had been building something under pressure, suddenly realizing the audience had been watching more closely than they might have expected. Viewers online picked up on that instantly. Many noted how the timing seemed almost cinematic, the co-presenter forced to pause because of a long-term back condition that had flared again, while the show he helped launch was being recognized for the very connection it had already formed with people at home. What stayed with a lot of people wasn't simply the nomination. It was the human texture around it. Eamonn's own message explaining his absence carried that familiar mix of straightforward honesty and quiet affection for the job. He spoke about unexpected hospital treatment, about needing time with family to heal, and about looking forward to sitting beside Isabel again the following week. There was no drama in the wording, yet many who read it said they felt the weight of someone who has spent decades on air still choosing to prioritize recovery without complaint. In an industry that often prizes presence above everything, that small act of stepping back felt significant. The atmosphere around the breakfast program has always had its own particular chemistry. Eamonn's seasoned, sometimes wry presence next to Isabel's clearer, more measured energy created a space that felt less polished than the big network shows and somehow more lived in. When one half of that pairing is temporarily missing, the difference is noticeable. Viewers who tune in regularly often talk about how the rhythm of the program changes, how the conversations stretch differently, how the silences land with a slightly different weight. Some said the shortlist announcement almost felt like a quiet reassurance that the foundation was solid enough to hold even when one of its central figures needed to rest. There's something revealing about the way audiences respond to these moments. People weren't only congratulating the channel. Many were expressing genuine relief that Eamonn was taking the time, that the team around him seemed supportive, that the message he sent carried gratitude rather than frustration. In the comments and conversations that followed, you could sense a collective sense of protectiveness. After only half a year on air, the program had already cultivated that kind of loyalty. A shortlist place next to Good Morning Britain and BBC Breakfast wasn't just industry validation. For many watching, it confirmed something they already felt when they switched on each morning. Television at that hour of the day is rarely about grand gestures. It's about the steady accumulation of small recognitions, the tone of a presenter's voice when discussing something difficult, the way a co-host picks up a thread without forcing it, the sense that the people on screen understand the ordinary pressures of the audience's day. When a program still finding its feet receives that kind of formal acknowledgement while one of its hosts is dealing with physical setbacks, the emotional layer becomes harder to ignore. It raises quieter questions about resilience, about how long it takes for a new voice to feel established, about what audiences actually value when they choose where to spend their mornings. Some people watching from home said the whole episode made them think about the physical cost of the job itself. Presenting live, early, 5 days a week, carrying the weight of years of previous broadcasting, then having the body insist on a pause. Others focused on the support that appeared around Eamonn, both from the channel and from viewers who simply wanted him to recover properly. The nomination, in that context, felt less like a trophy and more like evidence that the work had already begun to matter beyond the ratings figures. And perhaps that's why the moment continues to linger. Not because of any dramatic on-air confrontation or unexpected revelation, but because it showed two things at once: a channel still early in its story receiving recognition it hadn't fully expected, and a familiar face choosing rest without apology. In the middle of all the usual noise of morning television, that combination felt almost intimate. Maybe what stayed with people wasn't only the shortlist itself, but the reminder that even the most seasoned broadcasters need space to heal, and that audiences notice when a program treats that need with quiet dignity. What did you notice in the way the team handled those few days? Did the announcement land differently for you because Eamonn was temporarily away? I'd genuinely like to know how it felt from your side of the screen.